for these so many years now. And this year, this is the 8th Udhbhavana. Normally, we have been organizing this once in a month. And any faculty may volunteer to conduct this session and share his findings, or maybe one can even share the findings of some other researcher which are very outstanding and which may inspire others to go for research. Here, it doesn't matter which discipline we are from, because intention is to promote understanding in other disciplines as well. So one may be from engineering discipline, but this is an opportunity to develop interest and also know what is happening in other disciplines. So we are today having a session in the area of architecture, which is again an area and a discipline which interests everyone. So we may listen to the presentation and then ask questions, because maybe there are many points which may not be clear to everybody who is from other disciplines. So one should not hesitate in asking questions. More we ask, more speaker can share, so that an understanding can be developed in that particular topic. So with these words, I wish you all the best and happy learning during this Udhbhavana 2024 February. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So now allow me take the opportunity to introduce our distinguished resource person for the today. Architect Vishal Yadi sir is presently working as professor and director of Sri Vaishnav Institute of Architecture, since 2016 with overall professional experience of 23 years. During this turnover, he has worked.
This is the purpose of Udhbhavana, because
Yeah,
we
sir.
always think only in terms of our own discipline.
Yeah,
We tend to remember only our discipline.
yeah.
Even subconsciously also we will talk about our discipline. So we need to
Okay.
come out of it.
Yeah.
So no more disciplines, other disciplines. So therefore, you have good that you corrected yourself immediately.
Yeah.
Agriculture to architecture. Okay.
Oh, sorry, sir. Sorry. Extremely sorry, sir. Please. Uh, so sorry for interruption. And during this tenure, he has worked in various capacities, such as the associate architect, principal architect, in-house architect, and project coordinator, HODs, and principal. Dr. Yadi sir has recently completed PhD in 2023 from RGPV Bhopal on the topic of modeling energy efficient buildings, a case of indoor city, before which has completed in Master of Architect and Bachelor of Architect in year 2007 and 1999 respectively. Speaking about major achievements of Dr. Radhi sir, I should mention that he expert in various inspections committee appointed by the Council of Architects for the inspection of Architect College, journey member of prestigious award like Architect of Year, Best Dream House, successfully managed IIIDA exhibitions, successfully initiated and managed annual exhibitions, Kriti Kriti, successfully contribute to the major events like national conferences, international conferences as speaker as well as convener. As far as the academic experience is concerned, yes, Dr. Yadi sir has guided several students of the respective topic for dissertations and theses, presented and published several research papers in national and international conferences. Besides this, he has membership of prestigious bodies like Council of Architects, associate member of Institute of Architects. He is chairman of board study, member of academic counseling, and member of board of management in XVVV. Without any further delay, I invite our resource persons today's Udbhavana, Dr. Vishal Yadi sir, to share the knowledge on analysis of residential building of Indore with references to ENS code. Over to sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Anu ma'am. Just minor correction. My preface is not doctor. I am an architect. So architect Vishal Yarvi.
Okay,
And
okay, so
whenever we talk about profession, it is a we talk about field. It is architecture. Profession as an architecture, and we talk about person, then it is architect. Unlike engineering, there is a slight difference.
yeah, sir. Sorry for
So thank you so much. Thank
misunderstanding.
you for the
Yeah.
opportunity. Thank you, Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya. Thank you, Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Upendra Dhar, for permitting me to present research today. Thank you, coordinator and co-coordinator of the Udhbhavana. I will just share my screen. Yeah, can you please confirm whether my screen is visible?
Yeah, sir. It's visible, sir.
So basically, this work is related to the analysis of the buildings of the residential buildings of the Indore in context of the Econivas Samhita code. Now, what is Econivas Samhita code and all that we will discuss that shortly. I will try to be very informative or very short because so as there are persons from other disciplines also. I will try that they should understand properly. Just a minute. To- Yeah. So these are the contents of my presentation. Basically, it's divided into 10 sections. First part is introduction, where which will discuss about the background need, overview about Indore, about Econivas Samhita and climate analysis of Indore. Part 2 is review of literature, where the research articles referred, followed by research gap, research questions, aim, objective, hypothesis, scope and limitations, and applicability and contributory value. Then methodology and selection of buildings. We will discuss about the brief about the process of research followed with the selection of buildings for the case studies. Analysis will explore in detail the different criteria which are mentioned in Econivas Samhita. Section 5 is EPI, that is Energy Performance Index calculations. And results, section 6 is result and discussion. 7 is recommendation and followed by conclusion, future scope of research, references, and the details about the publications. Before moving to the actual presentation, please permit me to go through list of abbreviations which are used in this presentation. ENS is Econivas Samhita code. WFR is window to floor area ratio. WWR is window to wall area ratio. VLT is visual light transmittance. RETV is residential envelope transmittance value. ECBC is energy conservation building code. GRIHA is green rating for integrated habitat assessment. LEED is leadership in energy environmental design. IGBC is Indian Green Building Council. TERI is Tata Energy Resource Institute. PEE is Bureau of Energy Efficiency. I will just read out most important only. U roof is basically U value of the roof, and EPI is Energy Performance Index. RSE is exterior film resistance. RSI is interior surface film resistance. Then PF overhang is basically it's a projection factor related to overhang. H overhang is horizontal depth of external shading projection. V overhang basically it is a distance from the bottom of the sea level of the window to the bottom of the weather shed. And then W stands for windows, D stands for doors, V stands for ventilators, and so on. Coming to introduction, basically, when we talk about energy efficiency, All the buildings designed prior to the invention of the concrete in India were energy efficient. But in the process of following Western countries, in the period of few decades, issue of energy efficiency was at least priority. Green architecture movement began in 1980s for single houses and small scale buildings. In 1990, United Kingdom introduced world's first green building standard, followed by US Green Building Council in 1993. After 2000, it was realized that we must address the issue, otherwise future generations will be in trouble. Then so on the systems like Griha, LEED, IGBC developed. They worked on various working systems, various rating systems for the energy efficiency and different kinds of energy audit. And then the Terry has illustrated many principles of energy efficiency through examples. Coming back to the need, the cost of energy is increasing and the energy crisis is an imminent reality. So the need to provide the energy efficient building designs is very important. You may talk about United Nations Sustainable Goals, Niti Aayog goals, various strategies of government clearly demonstrate urgent need of energy efficiency in buildings. Just a brief overview. Almost 75% of the energy used in the construction goes towards the powering homes. Throughout the years, residential structure total power has increased dramatically. For instance, Niti Aayog in 1617, consumption was close to 260 terawatt hours. It was more than 55 terawatt hours than the previous year. In only 20 years, the number has multiplied by 4 times. By 2032, it is predicted to increase between 630 to 940 terawatt hours. The significant rise in domestic power consumption may be traced in a part to rise the popularity of using individual air conditioner. This will again increase the energy consumption. As the income rises, then the tendency to use the air conditioning is again increases, which further increases the burden on the energy. About Indore, like many other cities, Indore is also currently facing the challenges of balancing sustainability with the infrastructural growth. With increasing development in the sector of IT, education, and various industries, Indore is one of the fast developing city and also called as mini Mumbai, expecting huge population growth in few decades, which will create need of additional residential buildings. Hence, at this stage, it is very essential for Indore to mandate the execution of the buildings, which will require less energy to function. About Econiva Samhita 2018, earlier to this code, there was building bylaws, but then building bylaws often talk about the height of the building, side margin of the building, and so on. At most, it talks about the 10% of the floor area has to be there as an opening area. But then with the recent changes in the building systems, in the window systems, window material operating systems, door operating systems, these codes were actually outdated and there was a very much need of energy code, which is Econiva Samhita, which was introduced in the December month of the 2018. So Econiva Samhita basically takes care of few important things, like it takes care of natural ventilation, it takes care of the daylight potential, and it takes care of the thermal transmission. For example, it explains about openable 3.1 section of the Econiva Samhita explains the openable window to floor area ratio. Again, we will be discussing this term later on in coming slides. Then second criteria is visible light transmittance. Third is thermal transmittance of the U roof, and then the RETV, residential envelope transmittance value, and then again the U roof for the cold climate as well. So basically, these three issues are addressed. Before going to that, these criteria in detail, let us have a quick review of climate analysis of Indore for last 100 years. Basically, climate of the Indore is characterized as a composite climate. and it is basically hot and dry in summer and humid in other seasons. The daytime temperature in the winter is often about 25 degrees centigrade. However, in the night it makes around less than 10 degrees centigrade. High temperatures in the summer from the April to June may exceed 40 degrees. In spite of the daytime heat, being an city's position in the southern tip of Malwa Plateau, the temperatures drop to comfortable 25 degrees centigrade in the evening and in the night. This is the speciality of the indoor climate actually. Even in summer, the nights and evenings are comparatively cooler as compared to the day temperatures. Interesting part only to note here is the maximum temperatures were observed 46 degrees on 31st May 1994 and then 45.8 on 3rd June 1991. Minimum temperature were observed minus 2.8 degrees in 1929 and minus 1.1 in 1935. Just I will go through the review of literature very quickly. Basically, while studying this area, there was very less work was available in Indian context. Moderate work was available for other countries by foreign authors. But again, while coming to the Madhya Pradesh level, the work available was again reducing. Further zooming to the Indore city, almost there was no work on this specific criteria. Thus, in short, there was a great research vacuum basically. Uh, research uh, Research were conducted earlier, to just to understand the size and direction of the windows openings through CFD analysis. Then the team from the SEPT Ahmedabad, they just selected four cities: Ahmedabad, Pune, Mumbai, Delhi. They surveyed 800 homes. They basically covered different climatic zones of India, and then they created a valuable data for these four cities. Then there was some work for the Vijayawada region for the placement of the windows and the contribution of the windows in energy efficiency. There was research on electrical supply and then how it is how the energy efficiency measures can contribute in reducing the actual electricity. Then there was a research on RETV formula, the simulation of RETV and actual manual calculation of RETV that was found very close together. At international level also, there were at Quebec there was a research on this. The Portugal, Singapore, the research was there on these topics, but then again the problem was Indian context and again the especially the Indore and the Madhya Pradesh. So as these are the criterias, the paper were studied. These are just an reference the year from where the references were studied. As it was on latest year, the number was more. Again, the same is represented here. The earlier year it was less, and then the continue with the continuing years, the proportion is increasing. So with this, we can identify a research gap that very less comprehensive studies, especially for quantitatively evaluating the impact of ENS compliance on the building performance with specific reference to Indore. Then status of solar passive techniques in Indore was not clear. Correlation of this with energy performance index, economic implications were not clear, and then the stakeholders of the building constructions. So this was the research gap identified, and then arrived at the problem statement or the research questions that what is the status of currently, what is the status of solar passive techniques in Indore for the residential buildings? Second, do residential buildings of Indore comply with ENS code, the first energy code of India? If yes, to what extent? If not, how they can be complied with it? Third, can solar passive technique contribute to improve compliance of ENS code? Fourth, does adopting features for energy efficiency increase the cost? If yes, to what extent? And what is the tenure to recoup the additional investment? Then the research was conducted with this aim to assess the potential of solar passive techniques with respect to the energy conservation building code for residential buildings in Indore. This was subdivided into these four objectives. First was to study Econivas Samhita 2018 energy conservation building code as a base for analysis of buildings in Indore. Second was to benchmark the existing and new buildings with respect to the energy conservation building code for residential buildings in Indore. Third was to suggest the selected solar passive techniques to comply with the code. And the fourth was to work out the cost benefit analysis, energy and carbon footprint reduction. So with this, we arrived at a hypothesis that very few solar passive techniques are used in current residential buildings of Indore. Current residential buildings of Indore may be partially complying with ANS Code 2018, and adoption of solar passive features like shading of openings and walls, veranda, internal courts, jali, roof insulation can contribute significantly in achieving the target as per ANS Code 2018. And adoption of solar passive features may increase the cost to some extent, which can be recouped within the span of 5 to 10 years. Now the scope of the work, basically it includes the mapping of the shortlisted residential buildings of Indore for the criteria of VNS code, and the limitations where this study is for the Indore only. Other type of climate and other places are not considered. This study is with reference to the residential building sectors only. Other building types, they were beyond the scope of study. For example, commercial building or industrial buildings. This study is about the selected sample of 56 buildings. There may be other residential buildings in Indore only whose performance may be different than that of the 56 buildings, and the personal habits of electricity usage and electrical equipments, they were not considered. uh, Applicability and contributory value, basically, as we discussed in the introduction, as Indore is growing rapidly, which is increasing a tremendous pressure on the housing sector. So this is a high time to control the energy use of the buildings to save the energy of the for the future generation. And then the understanding of the energy consumption issues. Once we analyze these buildings, we can understand where are the issues, and then reinforce the compulsory energy audit of each and every building in the future. As see, ENS code is not, it's currently at a training stage, or the engineers of the Nigam, and they are undergoing various phases of training. Once that stage is complete within a span of next 2 to 3 years, that energy audit will be a compulsory process, and each and every building proposed, residential building proposed, has to pass the energy audit. Then only the building permission will be granted. So this is going to have a huge importance in coming years. This study portrays the actual picture of energy consumption of the ordinary residential buildings as on today, and gives pathway for energy conscious buildings. See, again, there is a lot of literature available for the buildings who are energy rated. For example, IGBC rated, maybe LEED rated. There are buildings in Indore only, in Indore also, but then no one is talking about the ordinary building, a common man which is purchasing a house or constructing a house, or purchasing a house from a builder, or a normal colonies. So the main area of this research was to address these common buildings. uh, for the methodology, the research philosophy used here as a positivism, as it is related to the quantitative study. The research type was, basically, it was conducted with deductive approach, as Econivas Samhita was used as a base to evaluate the performance of the residential building. Thus, it is of a confirmatory type. This is because deductive approach is more suitable while trying to assess whether the theory is applicable within the certain context. So this study adopts quantitative approach because studies that are confirmatory in nature utilize quantitative approach, which is suitable for it. Research strategy is case studies, because it is necessary to understand where do residential buildings stands with specific reference to ENS code. Hence, for this visiting actual place of the constructed buildings or the buildings under construction, then the actual site visits were necessary. This strategy to visit the shortlisted buildings and to study it from the point of view of ENS code. Now the time horizon followed was a cross-sectional time horizon as the data was collected to single time visit only. There were not visit to seasonal type because that was not required. This was possible because visit to each building was followed by detailed pre-preparation list of items supposed to measure, observe, photograph so as to avoid repetitive visits to save the time and to get the maximum benefit from the single visit. However, even though few buildings required more than a single visit to collect the data and to add the missing information, generally one building required 2-3 days for measurement and required 2-3 days for the analysis. Sampling strategy attempt has been made to shortlist such buildings which are very normal, average and represents commonly adopted practice of construction in the industry. We as a researcher wants to understand the status of the buildings commonly adopted by common man or flats or residential units sold by builders to the public in general. Any special type of building or building of unique character is not selected as an intention to confirm the status of average building. Attempt has been made to cover different parts of Indore, including the periphery of Indore, so as to have the overall picture of the city and not restricted to any particular portion of the city, which may have a particular character. Data was collected through actual visits and pre-designed questionnaire. For data collection method, the data required for each building was floor plans, photographs, location details, building height, number of floors, carpet areas, wall areas of each direction, window areas of each direction, number of panels in each window, type of glass and its shading, dimension of the weather sheets, wall assembly, roof assembly, etc. At places where full floor plans were available, they were referred and cross-checked with actual sizes. All the carpet area were measured with the help of laser meter and the windows and weather shades were measured by the steel measuring tape. Building height was measured with the help of laser meter. VLT values of glass were obtained from the glass sheet. Wall assembly and roof assembly was understood by the discussion of the relevant group of people, maybe architect, contractor, and so on. For the data related to computation of EPI, electricity bills were conducted for the period of June 20 to May 2021 to get the electricity units consumed throughout one whole year. The data collected was analyzed manually through Excel and different formulas. This was how data was collected, and then it contains various details like name of the building, then the type of the building, which year it was constructed, then the carpet area of the building, then the floor detail, then details of the wall assembly, details of the fenestration, windows, ventilators, so on, details of the roof, whether there are any courtyards or shading, any strategy used, and so on. Now, going into details of the four criteria which are mentioned in the Econivas Samhita. Basically, window to floor area ratio, as the name suggests, it is the ratio of openable area to the carpet area of the dwelling units. Unlike the building code, earlier building bylaws, they were talking about the 10% area of the openings only. But now this code talks about actual openable area. For example, when we are using aluminum windows, it's not necessary that whole area is openable. Suppose if there are two panels, then only 50% area is openable. That's why in this there is a provision. If there are two panels, then 50% area is to be counted. If there are three panels in the windows, then 67% of the area is to be counted as a openable area. In case of ventilators or doors, 90% of the area of the opening is counted as a openable area. Now for composite climate, there is a restriction that the minimum WFR ratio has to be 12.5, so as to ensure the proper ventilation in the building. Now, though second criteria is VLT, but to get the VLT, it is necessary to understand WWR, which is window to wall area ratio. Again, it is as the name suggests, basically it is the ratio of area of window to the area of wall. So that has to be calculated for each and every direction, and then the average has to be taken for all the four directions. So if the ratio is from 0 to 0.30, then the minimum VLT required, VLT is visual light transmittance, is 0.27. Now that's how basically VLT is obtained from the glass sheet. Basically VLT is the explains the actual light transfer, right? Light transfer through glass. Like darker is the glass, less is the light transferred, and then as the glass is lighter, then the more light can be transferred to the glass. So basically, that talks of that takes care about the day lighting potential. So as the if there is a proper day lighting used in the design, then the need on the artificial lighting is reduced, which again helps in energy efficiency. Fourth criteria was the U roof, which is thermal transmittance value of the roof, as roof is an important portion of the building for the heat transfer. Here the all the layers of the roof are considered, its thickness, and then the thermal conductivity is available already, these values are available, and then accordingly T upon K, this thickness upon this thermal conductivity, R is calculated, and then the 1 upon R is the basically U roof. So for that U roof, 1.2 is the maximum limit permitted in the code. Fourth criteria is RETV, basically residential envelope transmittance value. Now, the roof area is already addressed by U roof. Now we are talking about the enclosure of the building. This includes maybe opaque surface, maybe non-opaque surface of the building, and RETV takes care of the various factors. For example, walling material for the construction, U value of the walls. Then it takes care of window to wall area ratio, then U value of the glass and the shading design, then the SHGC value and the orientation of the wall and opening also. Now RETV is calculated by using this formula. Now for at first sight, this formula do appear complicated, but actually it is not. This formula is divided into three parts. Uh, this first part called as term 1, this takes care of heat of conduction, the heat basically heat transferred in the building through conduction. Second part takes care of the heat transferred through conduction, but from the windows. This was from opaque surface, this is from windows, and then this is from the heat of radiation through the windows. These are the constants. Again, this given, their value is given for the composite climate. A envelope, basically this is the area of the wall, which is calculated in window to wall area ratio. And then this is the area of the opaque wall or the non-opaque wall, as the case may be. This is the U value of the opaque material. This is the U value of the non-opaque material. SHGC I will explain in the next slide. And these are the orientation factors, depending where the on which side the wall is, whether is on the north side or whether is on the south side, and so on. This is just the explanation of the different terms which are used in this formula. And then basically that's how these are the ABC values are given for the composite climate, and it takes care of, this is how SHGC is calculated. SHGC is calculated through PF overhang. PF overhang is basically H overhang, which is the projection factor. This is window, this is a vertical section, this is a window vertical, this is a section through window, and then the protection weather shade for the window. This is basically H overhang, and this part is called as V overhang. So H overhang divided by V overhang, we get PF overhang, and then from PF overhang, SHGC value is obtained through chart. That's how the methodology part, basically the buildings were shortlisted, then the analysis of these buildings from the point of ENS code, then the three criteria, then three areas basically which ENS code addressed, then the different criterias, and then each building was studied for the separate criterias. This is the location of the 56 buildings. These are the single family houses, and then the blue triangles which you are seeing, these are the apartments, the multi-family housing. So this is the periphery of the Indore, and this is the now as per the new development plan. This is the modified periphery of the Indore. Now selection of building, which we have already discussed, that very normal and average, which represents and they are selected, purposely selected from the different parts of the Indore, and then they are of the different directions. This is how these are the period maximum buildings studied were from 1990 to 2020 basically. These are the photographs of the different buildings which were studied. Next basically next 5 slides are covering the different photographs of the buildings which were studied. Different areas like Lokmanya Nagar, Barfani Nagar, Manik Bagh Road, and so on. Vijay Nagar, near Mahalakshmi Nagar, and so on. So first 3 slides basically these are the single family houses, and then these 2 slides these are the apartments. Then apartments, few are from Kandwa Road, few are from Nipania, few are from near the Brilliant Convention Center, and so on. So after this section basically explains. Now in this limited time of 40-45 minutes, it is not possible to discuss the analysis of all these 56 buildings. However, we will discuss here one for single family and one for apartment. So this was a MP Housing Board at a typical unit from MP Housing Board at Rao. Then the the wall assembly was studied. How is the wall made up of? The roof assembly was studied, and then the drawings of the buildings were studied. This resulted into first part, which is window to floor area ratio. So for that, the dimensions of the each and every room was measured, and then that's how the total floor area of that particular building was calculated. Then the openings were measured, opening area was calculated. Again, if there were 2 panels, then 50% area, 3 panels, then 66% area. For ventilators and doors, 90% openable area is considered, and then that's how the ratio was obtained here as 18% in this case. So now the for BLT window to wall area ratio is calculated. So for this the wall area of different sides, all the 4 sides that was calculated. And the windows areas of the different sides were calculated, and that's how the U value of that slab is calculated, considering the different layers, their thickness, then the thermal conductivity, and then the R is T upon K, and that's how U value was calculated. Similarly, U value was calculated for wall. This was required for uh, it's directly used in the RETV calculations. Then then the next criteria, RETV calculation. Again, as discussed, that 3-term RETV formula, and then this is the calculation for the term one. Term one basically deals with the heat of conduction through opaque surface. So here are the areas of opaque surfaces, and then the U value of the opaque surfaces, their orientation factors according to their direction, and then the calculation for the term one. Here it's the calculation for the term 2, which is non-opaque surface, which are windows commonly. Then the size areas of the windows, U value of the glass used in that particular window, and then the orientation factor depending upon the direction of the window. Then PF overhang is calculated, and then accordingly the SHGC was calculated. And then the for 3, it deals with the heat of radiation through windows. So that's why that takes care of to calculate the heat of radiation. The details of the weather shades and chajjas were studied. And then finally they were multiplied with the ABC constants, and then the RETV calculated in this case was 17.4. Now this is the summary of this particular project, that WFR this is compliant. Basically the minimum has to be 12.5. In this case it was 18. VLT minimum has to be 27. In this case it was 35. But then two criteria were not complying, because Euro maximum limit is 1.2, whereas the one which was calculated for this, it was 1.55. And the RETV, the limit was 15, and the calculated here was 17. So two criteria were compliant and the two criteria were not compliant for this particular case. Coming to apartment. Now this was a apartment, and there were 16 flats on each floor. So again the wall assembly studied, the roof assembly studied, different sections of the roof, different layers of the roof studied, and then that's how the area was calculated. Flat number 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, then 7, 8 was on previous slide, and then that's how the area of all the 16 flats was calculated, and then the total area arrived. Similarly, calculation for the openings for each direction, and then the window to floor area ratio was calculated. After that, the same process which we discussed in the single family houses, the calculation of window to wall area ratio, then the wall sizes of for all directions, window sizes of all the directions, and their calculations, and then E envelope, because this is required in RETV calculations. Similarly, U slab calculated, and then the RETV, the three term, again the calculation for term 1, term 2, term 3, and then this in this case the RETV calculated was 12.35, which is very much within range. So again in this case, of course, the criteria which were complying, they are different, but then again the two criteria are complying, and then the two criteria are not complying. So after this, similar process was repeated for the rest of the buildings. And then the next part was to calculation the energy performance index. To calculate this, we have collected the electricity bills for the period of June 20 to May 21. And of course, the buildings which were under construction, it was not possible to get the electricity bills, but the buildings which were occupied, we are able to collect the electricity bills and calculate the EPI. Basically, EPI is the units consumed throughout the year divided by the built-up area of the building, and then that was the EPI was ranging from almost 5 to 60. That was a huge range was observed. As I give an example, this was for April 2021. So electricity bill, there is a column bill units, that units are referred, and that these units are used for the calculation of API, and that's how this is a total of this 12 months, and then the divided by the area of the building, and then the API in this case was 15. This was the month-wise segregation for this particular building for the API, and then basically coming back to result and discussions. Basically, the first research question was, what is the status of solar passive techniques in Indore currently? So there are internal courts and ducts commonly used in the buildings, especially when we are talking about the single family houses. And these courts are contribute in increasing the natural light, and as well as improving the ventilation of the building. Then the shading through balconies, by knowingly or unknowingly, yes, balconies are planned, and then those balconies help to cast the shadows on the wall below, and again that helps in energy efficiency. And then especially when we talk about the single family houses, they are used with one-sided exposure, which again helps in energy efficiency. For example, a building is packed from all the three sides. Again, it's closed by three sides, and then having access from one side of the road. Uh, Second research question was, do residential buildings of the Indore comply with ENS code 2018? which is the first energy code? If yes, to what extent, and if not, how they can be complied with. So the next table shows basically this is the summary of all the 56 buildings. In detail, we have discussed only 2 buildings, but then here it is a summary of 56 buildings, basically 12 buildings on each slide. So that contains the sample number, then the type of the building, then the first criteria, which is window to floor area ratio, then the remark whether this is complying or not complying. WWR, although it is not a criteria, but then this is a mandatory requirement for this VLT. VLT is dependent on WWR, hence WWR is also mentioned here. So this is the second criteria, VLT, and then the values were values of the VLT. Third criteria, U roof, then the different values of the different buildings for the U roof. The limitations was 1.2, then whether it's complying or not complying. Then the fourth criteria, RETV, and then again its remark, and then the API, and then the overall remark. So basically that's how the summary sheet, 12 buildings on each slide. And next, so these are the different, that's how this is the data for all the 56 buildings. Now when we analyze, basically there was not a single building where zero criteria was observed. But then the buildings where only one criterion was there were 14 buildings. Building, they were complying with 2 criteria, there were 29 buildings. Building complying with 3 criteria, there were 13 buildings. And we did not found any building complying all the 4 criteria. So roughly 0% for 0 criteria, 0% for 4 criteria, and then almost 50-50 buildings, 50% for the 2 criteria, and 25% for 1 criteria, and 25% for 3 criteria. Third question was, can solar passive techniques contribute to improve the compliance of the ENS code? The yes, because the answer was yes. The roof insulation and the wall insulation and the optimum window sizes. If window sizes are less than the required, and then that will light conditions will suffer. Need of artificial light will be there. Again, these buildings will not be energy efficient. If window size are more than the required, then the RETV value will increase, the heat gain will increase, and again the air conditioner will be required to control that heat. So optimum window sizes are essential, and then the type of the glasses used also play an important role. Addressing the research question 4, which was, does adopting features increase the solar passive features increase the cost, and if yes, to what extent? Yes, it was observed that if we adopt that features, the cost may increase to 5% to 25%, but then that has to be treated as a initial investment, because that results in the reduced energy consumption, which further results into the very low maintenance cost. Again, a drastic improvement in the indoor comfort or the indoor climate. Again, that increases the property value. And apart from all these benefits, the financial benefits, we are contributing to the environment. Now there are some recommendations, because the few criteria the were complied, few criteria were not complied. So there was an exercise what to do for the criteria which were not compliant. For example, this is for one building, one particular building that uh, uh, so RETV was going beyond the limit. So just a simple solution on the west side, that molded polystyrene is to be applied, and when that molded polystyrene was applied, then immediately RETV, which was around 18, that has reduced to 14.9. Another application, that U roof, that was going beyond limit. So one layer in the slab is applied, and then that U roof was within limit. So there was a calculation also for in terms of cost. For example, how much cost will increase in terms of percentage, and approximate period to recoup the investment in years. So that increased cost was around 5%, and then that period was again around 11%. Again, in this to calculate the period of to recoup the investment, there is a gradual increment in the electricity bills. After 2-3 years, there is an increment. That increment factor is not considered here, so that figure is will reduce actually further. So another case where WFR was not complying. So few windows were added, few ventilators were added, and then that criteria of WFR was complied with. Again, that was calculated in terms of percentage, and then this result was obtained. This was the analysis of WFR, though 12.5 was was a border limit, but then it was further analyzed that for the percentage for the various range 7.5 to 10, 10 to 12.5, 12.5 to 15, 15 to 17.5, 17.5 to 0.5 to 20, and so on. So just an graphical analysis of all the buildings. This is a analysis of RETV. Again, maximum limit was 15, but then again it was analyzed into different parts, and then this is how the analysis of RETV. So that's how for the comparison for the overall criteria, all the four criteria, and then about that this research resulted in that there is a considerable room for improvement, especially URUF and RETV compliance, especially for almost 98% of the buildings, URUF was not complied because the simple 4 inches slab or 6 inches slab with brick bat coba or with layer of tiles, basically that is not solving the purpose of the limit which is prescribed in the code. And then again, the RETV issues were observed because of non-insulation on the west side wall. For the southern wall, the insulation, the heat gain can be taken care through weather shed design or the cantilever design. But for west side, the insulation of west side walls are required. So basically, the key findings are the fenestration, the openings, the windows, maybe ventilators, maybe doors. They are to be very precisely calculated. It's not the after designing. It's not a 10-15-10 minute job or 15-minute job of placing the windows openings in the design. They are to be calculated as per these four criteria. Then the protection of the fenestrations, whenever openings are there, they has to be protected from the proper weather shades, insulation of west side wall and insulation of top slab. These are the major factors which are necessary to address. This study is valuable in shaping energy efficient building practice, promoting sustainability, reducing carbon footprints in the construction sectors, and policymakers and industry stakeholders can use this data to implement more effective regulations and incentives to drive the adoption of sustainable building practices. Scope for further research, future research. In this case, only 56 buildings were studied. Many more buildings can be explored. Other cities, other climatic zones can be explored. More research on insulation of west side wall and insulation of top slab wall. There are huge opportunities for that. Future research can include the number of occupants, their electrical fixtures, their personal habits, their lifestyle, etc. Compliance of ENS code with reference to IGBC Griha lead accredited building. This can be also another topic, interesting topic for future research. Then mean the buildings which are rated, which are 3-star rated, 4-star rated, those are rated and they are energy efficient. But then are they complying ENS code or not? That can be seen. And other building types. Here residential buildings only discussed. Other building types also can be studied. So references, I will just go quickly to research. This work was also published in few of the SCI journals and UGC approved. Thank you. If there are any questions, we can discuss.
Thank you so much, sir. The session is now open for the discussion. If any participants and a faculty member do have any queries, so please, they may have.
Yes, questions should come.
आनंद बाबू सर, आपका भी एक बिल्डिंग था इसमें आपके घर का. यस, गुरुप्रसाद सर कुछ पूछना चाह रहे हैं.
Yeah, I was just wanting to ask that all your key findings, no, about making energy efficient buildings.
Yes, sir.
These are applicable only for those buildings which are yet to be made, right?
Which are?
Yet to be made means for future construction.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. The buildings which are already there, because retrofitting is a technique, and through retrofitting, we can convert non-efficient building into energy efficient buildings.
Okay, okay. So
So this is applicable to both future as well as current.
that kind of work is being done in Indore for making buildings more energy efficient. I mean, already
For
constructed.
for retrofitting, no, but yes, for future consideration, the efforts are there. But then again, it is in the context of either lead rating, IGBC rating, or Griha rating. ENS code currently, all the stakeholders of the construction industry, they are not yet aware about this ENS code from this point of view.
Yeah, I think it would be required to make it compulsory that okay, if
Yes,
you know
it will be
even
compulsory,
if
sir.
the
Very soon, energy audit will be compulsory. Currently, the engineers of the Nagar Nigam and all those are attending the various training on that. And once that they are passed through that stage, then the energy audit will be compulsory for all the future buildings in MP also.
yeah future building plus the existing ones
Existing, it is
because
difficult. Therefore,
yeah
it is difficult.
existing
Yeah,
is difficult but see that is since the climate change is inevitable.
yeah,
So unless you change the energy efficiency of the existing buildings, it may not contribute much.
yeah.
Because future buildings, that will anyway take care of many factors.
Yes, sir. Yes.
But the existing buildings, since the cities are full of existing buildings.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions?
Anand Babu may have some question.
Anand, sir?
Yes, sir.
Which
Sir,
year?
sir, only one question is how different the ENS with the Griha rating, sir?
Sir, actually, these are criteria are very different. Just I explained. Just ANS code talks about the actual openable area. Griha do not talk about the actual openable area. Yes, Griha talk about the wall insulation, slab insulation, but then the again the basically this ANS code this gives a kind of flexibility. They do not restrict the architect to design the buildings that you have to do in a such a way. Only you have to follow the limit. That top heat gain from the top slab should be 1.2 only maximum. RETV value has to be maximum 15. WFR minimum 12.5. So this limits are given for the heat gain, and then the minimum is given for the ventilation criteria. So such minimum limit is not given in lead or Griha. Again, lead talks about the energy consumption of the building at international context, not particular to the Indian context. Yes, Griha talk about the energy consumption in Indian context.
So it also follows the National Building Code, no? I think.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other? No. Maybe no
I
queries
think
are here, so
I have to add, I mean, that's ENS and Griha.
Yes,
Am I
yes.
audible?
Yes, Abhijit, you are audible. Please go ahead.
I think ENS is a code and Griha is a rating system.
Yes.
That is I think there are
Yes, sir.
some,
ENS,
because the
yeah,
code,
basically ENS is not a rating. He is right. ENS is not a rating system. It is an energy code. It is the first energy code of India. Till that, bylaws were there, and bylaws were taking concern of the opening area percentage only, not beyond that. But then in energy code has gone far beyond that, and in very detailed the calculation of each surface and so on. So when it is a rating system, these are optional. It depends on you may go for it, you may not go for it. But when comes to energy code, it is mandatory. Everyone has to follow it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit.
Thank you so much. We have extend our heartfelt gratitude, sir, for the sharing the valuable insight of the today's session. So your extensive knowledge and experience contributes significantly to the enrichment of sessions for all the participants present here. Last but not least, I think just thank you all faculties member who attended these sessions with patience. Your active involvement has made event meaningful. I anticipate continued engagements from the participants in our fruitful sessions as well. So I would like to bring sessions to a close. Once again, thank you to everyone who played a role directly and indirectly in supporting this session. So shall I stop here? And thank you so much. And again, I extremely sorry for it. Beginning, they have some silly mistakes are there.
No,
So
no
sorry
problem.
for
No
that.
problem. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. It's a nice session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Very
sir.
informative.
Thank you, Yadi sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Sir.
Thank you.